She stormed up my driveway like she owned the place, waving a clipboard in one hand and yelling so loud the cows in the field scattered. "You can't live here. This farmhouse is under HOA rules, and you are in violation." I just leaned against my truck, wiping sweat off my forehead, and looked at her with disbelief. "Lady, this property isn't even part of your HOA." Her face turned red like fire. She shoved a paper at me, some fake notice with bold letters saying eviction. "This is illegal. Pack your stuff before the police arrive." I could feel my heart racing, but not out of fear, out of anger. She thought she could scare me off my own land. I folded the paper slowly, almost laughing, and said, "You're trespassing on my property. You're the one breaking the law." Her jaw dropped for a second. Then she pulled out her phone and screamed into it. "Send the cops now. We have an intruder." My fist tightened, but I stayed calm. Deep inside, I knew she had no idea who she was messing with. The wail of sirens echoed down the country road faster than I expected. Within minutes, 2 patrol cars rolled up, lights flashing. Karen waved her arms like she had just won a prize. "Officers, arrest him. He broke into this farmhouse. He doesn't belong here." She pointed at me like I was some kind of criminal. The cops looked at me, then back at her, confused. I didn't move, didn't flinch. I just sat on the tailgate of my truck, lit my pipe, and blew a slow puff of smoke. One officer stepped forward. "Sir, we got a call saying you're trespassing. Can we see some ID?" Karen smirked, whispering under her breath, "Got you now." I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out a worn leather wallet, and handed it over. The officer's eyebrows shot up the moment he saw what was inside. He quickly glanced at his partner, then back at me, standing straighter now, his tone shifting. "Ma'am," he said firmly to Karen, "you need to step back." Karen's smile faded. "What?" "No, he's the intruder. This property is HOA regulated, and I am the board president." I leaned forward just a little, meeting her furious eyes, and said quietly, "Karen, you just made the biggest mistake of your life." Karen froze for a second, then doubled down, shouting louder, "Don't listen to him. I have authority here, and if you don't arrest him, I'll have your jobs." The officers looked uneasy, but they didn't move toward me. Instead, one of them spoke calmly. "Ma'am, this land isn't in your HOA's jurisdiction. We've checked those maps before. You're overstepping." Her face twisted with rage. She stomped closer, waving her clipboard in the officer's face. "You're wrong. I personally filed the paperwork. This land belongs to the community now, and he's squatting illegally." That's when I pulled out a folder I had kept ready in my truck. I didn't even raise my voice. I just flipped it open and showed the deed, stamped and signed, with my name written bold across the top. "Funny," I said, "because according to the county records, this property has been mine for 2 months." The cops leaned over, nodded, and one of them even muttered, "Looks solid." Karen's eyes darted back and forth, her confidence cracking. She wasn't used to being challenged, and I could tell she was scrambling for her next lie. Instead of backing down, she pulled out her phone again and hissed, "Fine. If the local cops won't do their job, I'll call my officers." The air went heavy. The police exchanged looks, confused by her words, and I almost smiled. She had no idea how deep she was digging her own grave. Minutes later, a black SUV rolled up fast, skidding to a stop at the gate. Out jumped 2 men in uniforms that looked almost like police, but not quite. Their badges were cheap, their belts mismatched, and their presence screamed one thing: fake. Karen marched toward them with triumph in her eyes. Finally! Officers, arrest this man immediately! He's squatting on HOA property! The real cops stiffened, hands near their holsters. One of them whispered, "These guys aren't on our roster." But Karen ignored their suspicion, pointing at me like she was delivering a death sentence. "Take him away!" The fake officers started walking toward me, puffing their chests out. I didn't move from my tailgate. I just took one more puff from my pipe and said calmly, "Before you boys embarrass yourselves, maybe check who you're walking up to." They hesitated, glancing at each other, but Karen snapped, "Do it now!" The real police stepped in, blocking their path. "Hold on. Identification, both of you." The fakes looked uneasy, fumbling at their pockets. Karen shrieked, "You don't need to question them. They're with me." That's when I finally stood up, reached into my jacket, and slowly pulled out a badge of my own. The gold glint caught everyone's eyes. Karen's face drained of color. I said, steady and clear, "I'm not just the owner of this land. I'm the county sheriff." For a moment, the world went silent. The real officer straightened up instantly, almost snapping to attention. One of them muttered under his breath, "Sheriff," before giving me a respectful nod. Karen's mouth fell open, her confidence crumbling faster than I'd ever seen. The fake cops, however, weren't so quick to back down. One of them tried to play it off, puffing his chest again. That badge could be fake, too. "We don't take orders from—" He didn't finish his sentence. My deputy, who had been trailing quietly behind the SUV, stepped forward, radio crackling, and said, "Sheriff, want me to run their plates?" Karen whipped around, eyes wide. "Deputy? Wait, you mean he's really—" Her voice cracked, and she stumbled over her own words. The real officers were already moving in, frisking the fake cops, pulling out plastic badges and toy-grade handcuffs. One officer turned to me. "Sheriff, they're impersonators. We'll process them immediately." Karen was trembling now, trying to salvage control. "No, you don't understand. They were just helping me enforce the HOA rules. This property is part of the community, and I cut her off, stepping closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "Karen, this farmhouse isn't in your HOA, and now not only are you guilty of trespassing, you've brought criminals onto my land." She looked around desperately, realizing the crowd was turning against her. But instead of stopping, she screamed, "This isn't over! I'll destroy you, Sheriff! You'll see!" I leaned back against my truck again, calm as ever. Funny thing about threats, Karen. They usually sound better when the cuffs aren't already waiting for you. They dragged the fake officers to the patrol cars, while neighbors who had gathered started whispering and pointing. Karen tried to pull her face together, acting shocked. "You can't do this to me! I'm a community leader!" she wailed, voice breaking like she'd been caught in a lie she'd told so many times she believed it. I watched her for a beat, then nodded toward the porch camera that sat on my farmhouse. "Funny you say that. Want to see the tape?" Her smile froze before she could answer. My deputy tapped his tablet, and the doorbell footage played clear for everyone. Karen slipping a forged HOA notice under my door 2 nights ago, then whispering into a phone while the same 2 men stood by the gate. The crowd fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. Karen's face went white as the video showed her coaching the fakes. "Tell them you're enforcing community rules. Act like you belong." Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. She lunged forward, desperate. "That's edited! Fake! Planted!" she shouted. But the footage kept rolling. Her signature, her voice, The exact moment she called 911 pretending to be a neighbor. One of the officers held up a recording of her call, her own words damning her. A neighbor yelled, "She did it to old Mr. Lane last month too." And another pushed a post from a local group where Karen had bragged about keeping the neighborhood clean. Karen dropped to her knees like someone had pulled a rug from under her. "Please, please don't ruin me," she begged, eyes wet but hollow. People who'd wanted to believe her turned away. I walked up slowly, looked down at her and said, "You used fake power to scare my family and bring criminals onto my land. That's where this ends." She snapped, half screaming, half crying, "You'll pay for this!" I clipped my radio to my shoulder, voice low but carrying. "Maybe in court." Then I turned to the officers and said, "File everything. Trespass, impersonation, fraud." The deputy smiled once quietly and posted the footage. A neighbor already had their phone up, streaming. Within minutes, the scene was no longer just our road. It was on feeds, with one line in the caption that people kept repeating, "Don't mess with somebody's home." Karen was handcuffed, screaming at everyone like a cornered animal. "This is harassment. You'll all regret this." But the crowd only watched in silence. The same people she had bullied for years now standing taller as she was shoved into the back of a patrol car. One neighbor whispered, "About time," and another added, "She thought she owned us all." As the officers closed the door, she pressed her face against the glass, spitting venom through the crack in the window. "This farmhouse will never be yours. The HOA will crush you." Her voice was muffled, but her rage was sharp. I just tapped the deed folded in my jacket pocket and looked her dead in the eye. "Karen, this land was never yours to begin with." The SUV carrying the impersonators pulled away first, then the cruiser with Karen followed. The flashing lights disappeared down the gravel road, leaving only the dust hanging in the air. For the first time since moving into my dream farmhouse, the yard felt quiet, peaceful. My wife stepped out onto the porch, arms crossed but with a faint smile. "So much for a quiet country life," she teased. I chuckled, shaking my head. "Guess Karen didn't get the memo that I'm not the type you can scare." She came closer, her hand brushing mine. "You stayed calm through all that. Proud of you." But in the distance, I noticed a black car idling just beyond the tree line. Its engine growled low, and the driver's silhouette didn't move. My smile faded. Karen's last words echoed in my mind. "This isn't over." And deep inside, I knew she wasn't done yet. The black car finally rolled forward, crunching slow over the gravel. My hand instinctively rested on my hip, ready if things turned ugly. But instead of another threat, the window lowered, and a man in a suit leaned out. His voice was calm, too calm. "Sheriff, you made quite an enemy today. Karen has friends in places you wouldn't believe." He smirked once, then sped off, tires spitting dust. My wife's grip tightened on my arm. "Did you hear that? She's still pulling strings." I nodded, watching the car vanish. "Yeah, but strings snap when you pull too hard." By morning, the footage of Karen's meltdown had gone viral. Millions saw her screaming about the illegal farmhouse living and calling in fake cops. Neighbors came by to thank me, some with tears in their eyes. "She ruined so many lives," one elderly man said, "but you stopped her." Later that week, I stood on the porch of the farmhouse. I fought for the American flag waving above me. Karen was facing charges: fraud, trespassing, conspiracy. Her so-called power had collapsed under the weight of truth. And as I looked out at the land I'd bled to own, the land I swore to protect. I felt something deeper than victory. It wasn't just about me. It was about proving a point that every American knows in their bones. Your land, your family, your freedom. No HOA, no bully, no fake badge can take that away. I exhaled, calm at last, and whispered to myself, "This is my dream farmhouse, and no one will ever steal it from me."